So we got a little something special this week for our Beerly Sports and Beerly Football faithful. In between weekly episodes, kind of blessing you guys with a little inside look at this weekend's upcoming championship games for both conferences. Got Kerry here with me tonight, cover the AFC Championship game. We got the Bengals traveling to Arrowhead, take on the Kansas City Chiefs. One team's going to punch their ticket to the Super Bowl with a win, and we're going to give you a little bit of prediction, what we think, how the game's going to go, and then ultimately a score prediction. So I'll go first. On this week's episode in Pick'em, I picked the Bengals to beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, and I do believe the Bengals, I believe in the Bengals enough to win the game. I think it'll be a similar game to the Bills-Chiefs that we saw last week, but where Cincinnati gets an advantage to me is on the defensive side of the ball. And last week, Buffalo's defense isn't terrible. It isn't good, but against Kansas City and Arrowhead, they played well enough to win. It's lost a coin flip, in my opinion. What do you think about that? You think Cincinnati's defense going to perform much better than Buffalo's?
I don't think so. I think in the end, these are both very good offenses, pretty comparably. I mean, you saw the Bengals beat them in the regular season, and you saw the Chiefs absolutely destroy the Bills last week. But I do think it's going to come down to the defenses, and really just the big advantage in this game is how bad the Bengals' offensive line is. I mean, you saw last week, they barely got out of there in Tennessee as Burrow was sacked 9 times. The line was terrible all night long. The Tennessee pass rush was able to get him to the whole game. Jeffrey Simmons had a huge game. Harold Landry, Denico Autry, and the defense was able to perform. Chiefs, I mean, if you said this at the beginning of the year, they had one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They really turned it around ever since then, and their defense has really finished the season out strong. And they do have some good threats on that pass rush. Obviously, guys like Frank Clark, Chris Jones leading the way. Melvin Ingram was a huge pickup that they got at the deadline. So they got some guys that get to the QB. So it's really just going to come down to whether the Bengals O-line can bounce back. This has been an issue for years, which they didn't address much in the offseason. Hopefully they will next year. But I think the Chiefs' defense is just going to ultimately overpower Bengals O-line, maybe get Burrow to throw a turnover or two. And I think that's going to come down. I got it a one-score game with the Chiefs beating the Bengals at home 31-24 and heading to the Super Bowl.
Heading back to the Super Bowl, really.
Back, yeah.
Another reason I believe in the Bengals is because kind of what Gabriel Davis did last week, and what is Kansas City going to do this week with guys not named Jamar Chase? I mean, I would take T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd over Gabriel Davis.
I mean, it's a big game. You just got to wait for the bonehead play by Daniel Sorensen, which will definitely lead to like a 50-yard touchdown, and Chiefs fans will call for his head. And then he'll probably make it up with a big play at the end to save himself, and the announcers will love him again. But really, this is going to be a high-scoring game. I mean, Bills have a lot of weapons too, but I don't know. I wouldn't say they have in their receiving core the amount of talent that the Bengals do. I mean, they have Diggs, Davis, Sanders, Beasley. They got a lot of guys, but like Boyd, Higgins, Chase, that's an insane trio. CJ Zuma is not as good as Knox is, I'd say, but he's another big weapon. And then don't forget about Joe Mixon as do everything back. So a lot of weapons to contain. And I mean, this has been an inconsistent defense. It's been great in the second half of the year, but
yeah, they haven't been amazing in the postseason. If they want to stop Cincinnati's offense, like you said, they're going to have to bring down Burrow. And this was really interesting when I looked it up, but in wildcard weekend, when they played Pittsburgh, they had 2 sacks that week. And last week, they only had 2 sacks as well. I know both of those teams have a much better line than Cincinnati, but I don't see them holding Burrow to under 325 passing yards. I think it's a recipe for upset for Kansas City, and the Bengals have played extremely well against the Chiefs this year. But that's why I don't think the line is going to be as big in this game as if the Bengals win and go to the Super Bowl, because that is not something I want to see their O-line in the Super Bowl against either the Niners or Rams. But I do think we'll see that. And I have a lot more faith in the Bengals defense right now than I did the Bills last week. So I think they're going to get some stops, force some punts, play a lot better and harder on the Buffalo defense than the Buffalo defense last week. Punch your ticket to the Super Bowl. And another reason really outside of the ending of that game last week with the Chiefs and Bills, I think, their offense definitely played well when their back was against the wall. One, because of Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, and all the credit in the world to those guys. But because it really seemed like the Buffalo defense laid down, like even when they were just playing prevent at the end of the game with 13 seconds left, I don't know. I don't think that'll happen 2 weeks in a row if it comes down to it. I don't think the Bengals would let that happen. And I'm not going to panic with the Cincinnati O-line being the reason they're not good enough to win a playoff game until it happens, because their O-line really isn't good enough to win a playoff game, and they've done it twice. They were atrocious last week. Joe threw for 350. The defense played amazing, and they won. I think there's no reason they don't do the same this week. KC won an exciting one last week, but I'm not sold on them yet. Pound for pound, on paper, I don't think Cincinnati is worse by any means than Kansas City. And my official prediction, I got the Bengals winning, punching their ticket to the Super Bowl, winning at 36-31 in Arrowhead. Jackson Mahomes going out sad. Brittany Mahomes going out devastated.
Wouldn't that be great?
That would be great.
Let's just talk about X factors for this game. So let's both each give X factor on offense, X factor on defense for both teams. So I'll just run through mine right now. For the Bengals, on defense, Trey Hendrickson. He's been quiet in the playoffs so far. He had the concussion first round against the Raiders. Was pretty quiet last week, but he's got had 14 sacks in the regular season. He really get the QB. I mean, you saw last year the Bucs shutting down Mahomes. They got to him in the Super Bowl last year. If Hendrickson can lead that defense and shake Mahomes up a bit, that'll be a big factor. Offensively, Jamar Chase, he could change the game. He went off in the Chiefs when they played him early this year. If he has a couple of big plays, that could be huge for the Bengals and get them ahead early. For the Chiefs, I'm going to go with Nick Bolton. He had a great rookie season. He's a really good linebacker and to be a big part of this defense for years to come. I really think he's going to have to lead this defense, and it could help them put up a fight against a mediocre Bengals O-line. And for offense, got to go with Patrick Mahomes. You saw what he did last week, hitting Hill, hitting Kelsey in the end, pulling out that great game against Buffalo. If he can just do what he always does, except for the Super Bowl last year, then this team is going to be very hard to beat.
Mm-hmm.
Who you got your X factors?
For my X factor, obviously guys on the big three on the side of the ball, on the offensive side of the ball for Kansas City, Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, they have to have a good week every week if they want to win a playoff game or even more a Super Bowl. And they have been, and that's half or more than half of the reason they've won all those games. But looking on the defensive side of the ball, a guy like Rashad Fenton, he's going to be lined up on Jamar Chase for the majority of the game. And you saw how last week Diggs did not have that huge of a game. Gabriel Davis went nuts. The other guys had a much better game. If they're able to do that again this week with Jamar Chase, that's kind of the recipe they're going to have to go with. Shut down the number one and then try to contain as much as you can everything else. So I think he's going to have a big game, be an X factor definitely in this game. And then for Cincinnati, I think the middle of that defense is going to be huge. No specific X factor, maybe a safety, but something in the middle of that defense. You're going to have Tyreek Hill crossing through the middle all game, trying to get open, trying to outrun somebody in the middle of the field. And you're going to have Kelsey taking up that area, running the seam. So if you can lock that down the best as you can, That's going to be a huge recipe for success for them. And on the offensive side of the ball, Joe Mixon. The Bills didn't run at all last week. Devin Singletary had 10 carries. He did score, but only 2.5 as an average. Even in a game where the Bengals played the Titans last week, Mixon only 14 carries, but over 50 yards and a touchdown. He's going to be big this week. They can't throw the ball all game with that offensive line. Mixon's going to have to get up in there. He's going to have at least 65, 70 yards this week to give the Bengals a chance. And I think he does. I think Mixon has a good week. He's the X factor, one of the ones I really went with to give the Bengals this W. And 36-31. Mark it down. What was yours again?
31-24 Chiefs. So when I'm right, you'll just be crying in the corner. So
I don't think so, man. Everybody's giving KC this pass to the Super Bowl, this little speed bump in Cincinnati, but that's not what I see. KC won a huge game at home, but it's because of the last of the games, because of the end of the game, the last half of the fourth quarter and overtime.
Hey, who's getting to the AFC to the Super Bowl every year from the AFC? It ain't Joe Burrow yet.
You don't know that.
Not yet.
He was hurt last year.
True, but he still hasn't got there yet. I know someone else on the other side of the field that has.
Yeah, but this is his first chance.
Hey, he does have your favorite kicker of all time,
Evie Mack,
leading the way.
36. I gave him 36 points, so that's good enough for some field goals snuck in there. But yeah, the total scoring over under right now in Vegas is set at 54.5. So combined, you think that's definitely an over? Oh, you're right there. You're at 55.
Yeah, I'm right over. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a high scoring game. Kind of like what we saw earlier this year when these two teams played.
Right. And the Chiefs right now are favored to win by more than 7 points. So neither one of us have that. But that's where the current spread and line sit. We're in for a good one. I think this game is going to be a lot better than the NFC Championship game. What do you think?
I think NFC would be a lot lower scoring, kind of grinded out effort, especially with Jimmy G at QB. I think this should be the more exciting game, the higher scoring game. I definitely think we'll see an over on that 54.
Gotcha. Well, me and Zach are going to be doing that one after this, having a little insight into that game as well as some predictions. Do you have a score prediction for that game? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot as of right now. Is that something you're going to have to text me at a later date?
I will go with, surprisingly, the Niners taking it 24-14 over the Rams.
24-14. That's similar to my score. I'm not going to tell you my score or my team that I have winning. But look out for that. Me and Zach doing that one next. NFC Championship game preview. The year of the beer. Beerly Sports, Beerly Football. Good night.